This content includes reference to gender-based violence, including sexual violence, which may be distressing or traumatizing to viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Today's conversation is about something we don't talk about nearly enough: the way poverty and abuse weave themselves together and trap women in situations they can't just walk away from. We say leave, we say find help. But on the ground, the reality is so much harsher, so much more complicated, and sometimes so much more heartbreaking. Black Sash has been working with South Africa's most vulnerable communities for decades: single mothers, grant-dependent households, caregivers, women who are fighting every day just to keep their families afloat. And they see up close how a lack of income, financial control, and a failing system can lock women into danger. Today, we're talking to them about what they're witnessing right now in this country, the financial manipulation inside abusive relationships, the impossible choices women face, and the emotional and social toll of trying to survive when the safety net is this thin. This is a conversation about truth, about power, and about the systematic change we desperately need. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for your time, Kgothatso. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to start off with the role that Black Sash plays when it comes to women and child abuse. What impact and role do you play in trying to fight against this in South Africa?
Thank you so much. I'm in Black Sash. It's a national organization. We've got 4 regional offices. And in communities where we don't have reach, we've got community partners that we work with that are able to go into deep communities to assist, especially women and children. Black Sash is women-centered, is a women-led organization. And in a day-to-day basis, we advocate for women's rights. We teach women about their rights and responsibilities, the rights that are enshrined in the Constitution, and how best can they really enforce those rights in a day-to-day basis. And one thing that we also see from the ground is that women are indeed the face of poverty. It is a global phenomenon, and it is really disheartening, the fact that we see such statistics, especially on the ground. So what we normally do as the Black Sash is obviously go into the communities, offer rights-based education where women can take their rights forward.
Just speak to me about the realities that you are seeing on the ground in terms of the cases when it comes to women and poverty in South Africa.
I'd first like to start with, there was a case about a year ago, if not early this year, where a woman in the Eastern Cape province unalived her children because of poverty.
Sorry, she did what?
Unalived, killed her children because of poverty in the Eastern Cape. It's poverty is a lived reality in South Africa. To women, it's not something that is a theory, that it's lived day in, day out, So when a woman now has to have a choice between continue living or unaliving my children so that we can just, I don't know, So it's just disheartening realities on the ground. And one thing that we know is that social grants are there, although they do assist, but they're not enough. They're not enough. We know that the child support grant, which is a grant that is mostly received by single women, and it's received by almost around 13 million children, if I'm not mistaken. But the amount is way below the food poverty line. And initially, when it was introduced to actually meet children's basic needs. And currently in 2025, it doesn't do that. So women really have to stretch the little 530 in order to continue living throughout the month. We did a case study in the Western Cape province where Black Sash went into rural communities and townships and had a conversation with women. And one thing that one woman shared was that I have to put a pot on the stove when my children come back from school, put water and start boiling the water with the hope that they will sleep hoping that I'm cooking something, but reality is there was nothing on the table. Come tomorrow, but their children go to school and hoping that the food schemes at schools would really play a role. So it is devastating, really, on the ground. And that's why, as the Black Sash, we really do call that we need a universal basic income grant, to actually assist women on the ground. Because, it's bad.
Are you finding more and more cases of mothers harming themselves and their children because of just how bad things are financially for them? Has there been an increase in those cases?
Not an increase per se, but also I think the question is, are those cases reported? Because there might be cases on the ground that are not necessarily reported. But one thing that we know is that the child support grant is definitely not enough in today's age.
Would you say that because of the many financial difficulties that women face, for whatever reason it might be, they end up staying in these abusive relationships, which end up just exacerbating the situation? Have you picked that up?
Yes. I mean, if you don't have a financial muscle, a financial freedom, you don't have a right to choose. People or partners that are financially enablers in relationships are able to call the shots, are able to say, this is how we do things or this is how we don't do things. So most of the time, women really have to choose between staying in those relationships or really going out, and outside it's really not certain. And one thing that we also see from women is that because of the lifestyle that it was introduced to them, it becomes difficult if they leave to maintain or sustain that lifestyles. Therefore, they seldomly choose to stay in those abusive relationships because of the financial assistance that they get from their partners. We also see that women would not choose themselves. Their feelings or their safety, it comes secondary to their children. They would normally put their children first, their children's fees, their children's well-being first, if in relationships their children are well taken care of. So they would not leave because of such challenges.
I want to speak about the kind of support that we can give to women in this instance, because, we always just say, just leave. Why are you sticking around? But you should never just make it that easy for or tell an abused woman, just leave, because it's really not that easy. There are a number of factors at play, but what kind of support do you believe we should be providing for women? And what kind of support do you as Black Sash provide to women to help them get out of such toxic environments?
I think, one, we need more shelters in South Africa. There are not enough shelters where this woman can go into those shelters. There are not enough shelters, so we need more shelters. One thing that we would always be calling for is a universal basic income grant. And I say universal because the current grant, the SRG grant, as it formed, it has discrepancies. There are challenges with the grant. So once it's universal, then everybody would be able to then get the grant. And one thing also is that we can't just always say, just leave. There's more to that. Women would need counseling. Women would need legal support to fight custody for their children, to get protection orders. So we need almost everyone to get involved, in order to assist this woman to leave this particular relationships. But one thing that I also want to share is that we also did a study when initially the 370, now 370, previously 350 grant was introduced, where we spoke to women who had never been employed. I know I spoke to women in the rural areas of Limpopo, Denelton, where we asked them, what is this 350 doing to you? And most women then shared that I've got the financial freedom to buy what I want to buy now, where previously they didn't have. So that's something that we should not take for granted. Hence, the Black Sash would continuously call and advocate for a universal basic income grant.
Sure. Do you think that is really going to make a difference, especially the point where you made about shelters? Because, many would say that is just an easy way out and not dealing with the core problem that we are facing, and it's just trying to kind of mask it. Do you think that the shelters and the basic grant will actually deal with the core problem that we face in this country when it comes to GBV and reliance on men for financial support?
Yes, to a certain extent. When we talk about a universal basic income grant, we talk about a grant that anyone in the Republic is able to receive, regardless of their financial standing. Therefore, women that currently don't have a financial freedom with the universal basic income grant would be able to get a financial freedom to do what they would need to do with their money. That's one. Two, shelters also needs to be more resourced. We need shelters that are more resourced. We need legal assistance. We need counseling. So it's a holistic approach that I feel NGO, government, and private sector need to come to the party to actually assist women get out of abusive relationships.
If government had to really do what it's supposed to do you think we would see less of?
Yes. One thing that the Black Sash is calling for currently is that we need a social protection floor. And a social protection floor, it's a basket of goods and services that we feel that government should provide to citizens to be able to live a dignified life. You, in that basket of goods and services, you've got transport, reliable transport. We've got healthcare, we've got education, we've got universal basic income grant, we've got various goods and services in that basket. With the basket of goods and services, we are certain that a person wouldn't start from zero. A person will start from something. Therefore, people will then have a choice to say, okay, fine, if I'm leaving this abusive relationship, at least there's something out there for me that would assist.
Would you say that government is failing us?
To a certain extent, yes. For example, it was recommended in 2002, if I'm not mistaken, by the Teller Committee of Inquiry that South Africa needs a basic income grant. To date, we don't have it. It's 2025. So to a certain extent, government is failing us. And we need government, and not only government, but also private sector to come to the party.
I don't want to only focus on the bad and how difficult things are for women and children in this country, because we see it, we live it every single day. How do we help them? For somebody that's watching, that feels trapped, that is depending on a man, that's being abused but can't leave because we don't know what we're going to eat tomorrow. How do we help them if they're watching this?
Look, I think most importantly to those women, they're not alone. I think last week, Friday, we did a very powerful statement where Women for Change called upon women in South Africa, to say, let's stand still for that 15 minutes. Let's march. Let's lay flat on the ground. So women are not alone. There are NGOs that are there to assist. There are organizations such as Black Sash. I know there are also more organizations that do similar work to Black Sash. Although we don't have shelters at the Black Sash, but we offer services, we offer advice giving. People are able to call us. People are able to find us on our social media, where we are able to then interact with women, also refer them to relevant organizations that will be able to assist. And this is not only in Gauteng, but nationwide. So people shouldn't feel that they are alone. They should go out, seek for assistance. Assistance is available.
What about the challenges you face as Black Sash? Is it a resource problem? Because that would obviously impact how many women you can help and reach.
And I think it's not only Black Sash, it's mostly NGO. Funding is quite scarce. And in the day-to-day age where most people wouldn't fund a certain call that we would call. So it becomes quite difficult to get funding. With most NGOs, it's not only Black Sash, but we really try to work together with community partners, community organizations on the ground, especially on places where we can't reach, to say that we've got community partners that we work with that are able to reach those outskirt communities.
Do you believe that things will get better? Is there light at the end of this very dark, long tunnel?
Yes. we need to come together. Everyone, men, women, government, private sector, NGO, we need to pull together. And I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. We need the legal system to be for women, because we know also that most women in abusive relationships, they find it difficult to go out because you find that partners are financially abled and they don't have the resources to get the best lawyer. So we need the legal system to come to the party. So yes, we have to always be hopeful. So there is hope. There is a bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
Sorry, I do have one more question with regards to why it's important for women in abusive relationships not to feel alone, because they stay in there because they don't see the light, but also because they just don't know how they're going to get help. And maybe just some words of encouragement to them to say, staying is not going to make it better and leaving is going to be hard, but it's the best thing that you can do for yourself and if you have children as well.
So really, women in abusive relationship, I think one thing that I can encourage them is to leave. The sooner, the better. You know, sometimes women would say that they're staying for the sake of their children, but the emotional stress and the emotional toll that brings on children, it's really not worth it. So it's better to leave. There are NGOs, there are organizations that are there to offer support, to work together with you, to journey along with women. So please do leave. Support is there. Seek support, seek assistance. It is available. Once you leave, you would also know that it is actually better than having to stay in an abusive relationship, for your emotional being, for your physical being, for your just overall well-being.
I think what this conversation reminds us of is that abuse doesn't only happen in bruises or threats. Sometimes it's in the bank card you're not allowed to touch, the grant you never see, the job you're forced to quit, the taxi fare you don't have, the children you can't afford to move with, the fear of ending up with nothing. Black Sash works in the middle of all of that, in the fear, the frustration, the long queues, the broken systems, the whispered stories, trying to hold the line for women who feel like the world has already given up on them. If you're listening and you need help, or you know someone who does, please reach out. You can find Black Sash at blacksash.org.za, and they can guide you to legal advice, grant support, or partner organizations that can help you to take the next step. You do not have to navigate this alone. And if you're someone who wants to support their work, whether through donations, advocacy, or volunteering, please contact them. Organizations like Black Sash survive because ordinary people decide that enough really does mean enough. Thank you for being with us today and for choosing to listen deeply. This is Voices of Change, and every voice we lift brings us closer to the South Africa that we deserve. Report any form of gender-based violence to your nearest police station or call 0800 10 111. For more information, go to enca.com or reach out to any of the organizations we've spoken to in this series.